The police cruiser pulled up in front of my house on a Tuesday morning in late January, and I knew exactly who had called them before the officer even stepped out of his vehicle. I was standing in my driveway in Deerfield Township, Michigan, wearing my heavy winter coat and holding a snow shovel, watching as Officer Martinez approached with that look cops get when they know they are about to waste everyone's time on a nonsense call. The temperature hovered around 15 degrees, and my breath came out in white clouds as I waited for him to reach me. "Morning," he said, his tone already apologetic. "I'm Officer Martinez. We got a call about a snow obstruction issue. Let me guess," I said, leaning on my shovel. "Patricia Hendricks from the HOA." He glanced down at his notepad and nodded slowly. "That's correct. She says you've deliberately piled snow to block HOA signage, and she wants it removed immediately." I pointed toward the street, where a massive berm of snow sat along the curb, courtesy of the township plow that had come through after last night's 8-inch snowfall. Behind that berm, barely visible, was a bright yellow HOA sign that read Willowbrook Estates Community Rules. No street parking after 10 p.m. "Officer, that's from the plow. It came through at about 3 this morning and pushed all that snow right there. I didn't pile anything. I've been out here for the last hour just trying to clear my own driveway." Martinez walked over to examine the berm. It was obvious from the compressed, layered nature of the snow that it had been pushed there by heavy equipment, not hand-piled. He took some photos with his phone, then came back to where I stood. "Yeah, I can see that's plow work," he said. "Look, Mr. Vance, between you and me, we get calls from your HOA about once a week. Usually it's nothing. I'll document this and let her know it's a township issue, not a resident issue." "I appreciate that," I said. "My name is Xavier Vance, and I had been living in this subdivision for 3 years now, long enough to know that Patricia Hendricks, the self-appointed HOA president, made it her life's mission to find violations where none existed." Martinez headed back to his cruiser, and I returned to shoveling my driveway. I had just gotten back to work when I heard the sharp click of high heels on pavement. I did not even need to look up to know who was coming. "Xavier Vance, I saw that officer leave, and I know what you told him." Patricia's voice cut through the cold air like a knife. "You deliberately piled that snow there to cover our community sign, and I have proof." I straightened up and turned to face her. Patricia was 52 years old, with blonde hair styled in that classic speak-to-the-manager cut, wearing a puffy white coat that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. Her face was already red, though whether from cold or anger, I could not tell. "Patricia, the township plow did that at 3 in the morning. I was asleep. There's no conspiracy here. That sign cost the HOA $400, and it's important for maintaining property values in this community. If you don't clear that snow by end of day, I'll be filing a formal complaint and you'll be fined $500. For snow the township put there, for failure to maintain community standards," she snapped. "It's in Section 12 of the HOA bylaws, which you agreed to when you purchased your home." I had read those bylaws, all 73 pages of them, and I was pretty sure Section 12 said nothing about being responsible for township snow removal. But arguing with Patricia was like arguing with a brick wall, so I just nodded. "I'll see what I can do," I said, hoping she would leave. She did not leave. Instead, she stepped closer, her boots crunching in the snow. "You've been a problem resident since day one, Xavier. Always questioning the rules, always pushing back on community improvements. Some of us are starting to wonder if you even belong in Willowbrook Estates. I pay my dues on time, I follow the actual rules, and I keep my property clean. What more do you want?" "Compliance," she said. Complete compliance with community standards. That's what separates us from the trashy neighborhoods in town. Now clear that snow." She turned and walked back toward her house 3 doors down, her heels clicking with each angry step. I watched her go, feeling my blood pressure rise despite the freezing temperature. The thing about Patricia was that she had moved into Willowbrook Estates about 6 months before I did, and had immediately installed herself as HOA president. There had been no election, no formal process. She just started acting like she was in charge, and the handful of other residents who attended HOA meetings went along with it because nobody else wanted the job. Over the past 3 years, she had turned what should have been a simple neighborhood organization into her personal fiefdom. I finished clearing my driveway, then looked at the snow berm. It was at least 4 feet high and stretched for probably 20 feet along the curb. The sign Patricia was so concerned about was completely buried except for the top 6 inches. Clearing it would take me at least 2 hours of hard work. And for what? The plow would just come through again after the next snowfall and bury it again. But I also knew Patricia well enough to know she would follow through on her threat. She had fined other residents for equally ridiculous reasons. Old Mr. Chen 2 streets over had been fined for having his trash invisible from the street a day after pickup. The Johnsons had been fined for planting flowers that were not on the approved list. Patricia ran the HOA like it was her personal kingdom, and she did not tolerate dissent. I was heading inside to warm up when my phone rang. It was my buddy Marcus, who lived across town in a neighborhood blissfully free of HOA tyranny. "Hey man, still on for the game Sunday?" he asked. "Yeah, should be, unless my HOA president has me arrested by then." Patricia again, always Patricia. She called the cops on me this morning because the township plow buried one of her precious signs. Marcus laughed. "That woman needs a hobby, she has one. It's ruining my life." We chatted for a few more minutes before I hung up and went inside. My wife had left me 2 years ago, partially because she could not stand living under Patricia's constant scrutiny, so I had the house to myself. I made coffee and sat at my kitchen table, looking out the window at the offending snow berm. That's when something occurred to me. I pulled out my laptop and started searching through the Deerfield Township Municipal Code. I had a vague memory of reading something about sign placement rules when I had wanted to put up a little free library box in my front yard last year. Patricia had shut that down immediately, citing HOA rules, but I remembered the township had its own regulations too. I found what I was looking for in Chapter 18 of the Township Code, Section 4, Right-of-Way Obstructions and Sign Placement. According to the code, no permanent or semi-permanent signs could be placed within 15 feet of the road unless they were official township signs or had special permits. The regulation was designed to keep sight lines clear for drivers and prevent visual clutter along public roads. I walked back outside and used my phone to measure the distance from the curb to Patricia's precious sign. 12 feet. The sign was in violation of Township Code. A slow smile spread across my face. I took several photos of the sign, documenting its position and distance from the road. Then I went back inside and drafted an email to the Deerfield Township Code Enforcement Office, politely inquiring about the sign at the entrance to Willowbrook Estates and whether it complied with local ordinances. I hit send and felt a small surge of satisfaction. If Patricia wanted to play games, I could play too. The rest of the day passed quietly. I did some work from home, checking emails and finishing up a project for my job in IT consulting. Around 4 in the afternoon, my doorbell rang. I opened it to find a different police officer standing there, this time a woman named Officer Chen according to her name tag. "Mr. Vance, I'm sorry to bother you again, but we've received a second complaint from Patricia Hendricks. She says you've still not cleared the snow from the community sign and are now in violation of HOA rules. Officer Chen, that snow was put there by the township plow. I'm not responsible for township snow removal operations. I understand that, sir, I told Miss Hendricks the same thing, but she insisted I come document your non-compliance. She looked embarrassed. I'm required to respond to all calls, even ones that seem frivolous. I get it. Do what you need to do. She took a few photos and notes, then lowered her voice. For what it's worth, my sister lives in an HOA neighborhood in Canton, and she has similar problems. These organizations can get out of hand. You might want to check if your HOA is properly registered with the county and if their bylaws are actually enforceable. That was interesting advice from a cop. Thanks, I'll look into that. After she left, I did exactly that. I pulled up the Oakland County records and searched for Willowbrook Estates HOA. What I found was illuminating. The HOA had been properly registered when the subdivision was first built 12 years ago, but the registration had lapsed 3 years ago and had never been renewed. According to Michigan law, an HOA needed to maintain active registration and file annual reports to maintain its legal authority to enforce bylaws and collect fines. Our HOA had done neither. I sat back in my chair, processing this information. If the HOA was not properly registered, did Patricia actually have any legal authority to fine residents? I was not a lawyer, but it seemed like a pretty significant oversight. I spent the next hour digging deeper. I found the original HOA bylaws filed with the county, and as I read through them, I discovered something else interesting. According to the bylaws, the HOA was supposed to have a board of 5 directors, elected by homeowners every 2 years. There was supposed to be a president, vice president, treasurer, secretary, and at-large member. Patricia was the only board member. She had appointed herself president and apparently never bothered with elections or other board members. The bylaws clearly stated that the HOA could not conduct official business, including levying fines, without a quorum of at least 3 board members present. Every fine she had issued over the past 3 years was invalid. I printed out everything I had found and put it in a folder. This was getting interesting. The next morning, Wednesday, I woke up to find a bright orange notice taped to my front door. It was an official-looking document on HOA letterhead, stating that I was being fined $500 for willful obstruction of community signage and had 15 days to pay or face legal action. The notice was signed by Patricia in her capacity as HOA president, treasurer, and secretary. She had literally signed it 3 times with 3 different titles. I took a photo of the notice, then went back inside to call my friend Rachel Lopez, who was a real estate attorney in Detroit. We had gone to college together, and she owed me a favor from when I had helped her move last year. Rachel, I need some legal advice about my HOA. Oh no, what did they do now? She had heard plenty of my Patricia stories over the years. I explained the situation, including what I had discovered about the lapsed registration and the lack of a proper board. She listened quietly, then asked me to email her everything I had found. Give me a few hours to review, she said. But Xavier, if what you are telling me is accurate, your HOA has some serious problems. They've been operating without proper legal authority. That's what I thought. What about all these fines they've been collecting? If they are not properly registered and do not have a legally constituted board, those fines are probably not enforceable. But more than that, if they've been collecting money under false pretenses, that could potentially be fraud. My eyes widened. Seriously, I need to review everything before I say for sure, but yeah, this could be a bigger deal than just some HOA drama. Send me those documents. I spent the morning scanning and emailing everything to Rachel, then decided to do something I probably should have done years ago. I printed out flyers announcing an emergency homeowners meeting at my house Saturday afternoon. The flyer explained that there were serious questions about the HOA's legal status and that all residents should attend. I spent the afternoon walking around the neighborhood, putting flyers in mailboxes. Willowbrook Estates had 42 homes, though 3 were currently vacant. I knew some of my neighbors by name, others just by sight. Most seemed friendly enough, though a few were definitely in Patricia's camp and viewed me with suspicion. I was putting a flyer in the mailbox of the house next to Patricia's when I heard her voice behind me. "What do you think you are doing?" I turned to see her standing in her driveway, hands on hips, face already turning red, exercising my rights as a homeowner to communicate with my neighbors. "You're organizing an illegal meeting." HOA business can only be conducted at official meetings called by the board with 14 days' notice. "Funny you should mention the board," I said. "How many members does our board have, Patricia? That's none of your concern." "Actually, it's every homeowner's concern. According to the bylaws, we are supposed to have 5 board members. I only know about 1, you." Her face went from red to purple. "I've been managing this community perfectly well for 3 years. We don't need a full board for every little thing. The bylaws say differently. But we can discuss all this at the meeting Saturday." "There will be no meeting. I forbid it." "You can't forbid homeowners from gathering to discuss community issues. That would be illegal. But feel free to attend if you want to answer some questions." I walked away before she could respond, my heart pounding. I had never directly confronted Patricia like that before, and it felt both terrifying and liberating. When I got home, there was an email from Rachel. She had reviewed all the documents and confirmed my suspicions. The HOA was operating illegally, the fines were not enforceable, and if Patricia had been collecting and spending HOA dues without proper oversight, there could be serious legal consequences. "You need to contact the other homeowners and figure out how much money we're talking about," Rachel wrote. "If she's been collecting dues from 40 families for 3 years, that's potentially a lot of money. Where did it go? Was it properly accounted for? This needs to be investigated." Thursday morning, I started getting phone calls. Mr. Chen called first, excited about the meeting. "I knew something was wrong with that woman," he said. "She fined me 3 times last year for the stupidest things. None of it made sense." The Johnsons called next, then the Patel family from the corner house, then Sarah Murphy from across the street. By Thursday afternoon, I had heard from 23 households, all saying they would attend the meeting. Many had their own Patricia horror stories. Several mentioned being fined for minor or imaginary violations. A few said they had tried to challenge the fines but had given up when Patricia threatened legal action. One call stood out. It was from Frank Morrison, who lived on the other side of the neighborhood. "Xavier, I used to be on the HOA board when we first moved in, about 8 years ago. There were 5 of us originally. Patricia joined the board about 6 years ago, and within a year she had pushed everyone else out. She made it so unpleasant that we all resigned. I always assumed she had replaced us, but if she hasn't, that's a big problem." "She hasn't," I confirmed. "She's been operating as a one-person board for 3 years at least. That's not legal. The bylaws are clear about needing a full board. I still have copies of all the original documents if you need them." "That would be incredibly helpful. Can you bring them to the meeting Saturday?" "Absolutely. It's about time someone stood up to her." Friday morning, I woke up to find my car had been towed. Not stolen, towed. There was a notice on the ground where my car had been, stating that it had been removed for violating HOA parking regulations. I was furious. My car had been parked in my own driveway, not on the street. I called the towing company listed on the notice, a place called Randy's Towing in Pontiac. "Yeah, we got a call from your HOA president," the dispatcher told me. "She said your vehicle was in violation and authorized us to remove it." It was in my driveway, on my property. She had no authority to have it towed. "Look, man, we just do what we're told. If you want your car back, it's $250. This is theft. Take it up with your HOA. You want your car or not?" I did not have much choice. I called an Uber and headed to Pontiac to get my car back. The towing yard was exactly as depressing as you would expect, surrounded by a chain-link fence topped with barbed wire. I paid the ransom, got my car, and drove home angrier than I had been in years. When I got back to Willowbrook Estates, Patricia was waiting in front of my house, a satisfied smile on her face. "I hope you've learned your lesson about defying the HOA," she said. "You had my car illegally towed from my own property. That's theft." It was illegally parked at an angle that violated community aesthetic standards. I have the authority to remove violations. We'll see what the police think about that. I pulled out my phone and called 911. Patricia's smile faded. "You wouldn't dare. Watch me." Officer Martinez arrived 15 minutes later. I explained what had happened, showing him photos I had taken of my car properly parked in my driveway before it was towed. Patricia insisted she had the authority under HOA rules to remove any vehicle that violated community standards. "Madam, if the car was on private property, specifically Mr. Vance's property, you don't have the authority to have it towed without his permission," Martinez said. "That's theft. I'm the HOA president. I have the authority to enforce our rules. HOA rules don't supersede property rights." "Mr. Vance, you would be within your rights to press charges for theft and file a civil suit to recover your towing costs." "I want both," I said. "I want charges filed and I want my $250 back plus damages." Patricia's face went pale. "You can't be serious. Watch me." Martinez took detailed statements from both of us, documented everything, and said he would file a report. He advised me to also contact the Oakland County Prosecutor's Office to follow up on potential charges. After he left, Patricia stood in my driveway, clearly struggling with what had just happened. "You're making a huge mistake," she finally said. "I'll make your life so miserable you'll have to move." "Is that a threat?" "It's a promise. You have no idea what I'm capable of." She stormed off and I went inside, shaking with adrenaline. This had escalated way beyond a stupid argument about snow. I called Rachel and updated her on everything. "Xavier, you need to be careful," she said. "This woman sounds unhinged. Document everything, save every email and text, keep photos of everything. If she's willing to have your car stolen, there's no telling what else she might do." That night, I barely slept. Every sound outside made me jump, worried Patricia might do something else. But the night passed quietly, and Saturday morning arrived. I spent the morning setting up my living room for the homeowner meeting. I borrowed extra chairs from Marcus, set up my laptop to display documents, and printed copies of everything I had found about the HOA's legal problems. People started arriving around 2 in the afternoon. By 2:30, my house was packed. I counted 32 residents, representing about 30 households. It was way more than I had expected. Frank Morrison arrived with a banker's box full of old HOA documents. "I've been saving these for years," he said. "I had a feeling they might be important someday." Patricia showed up at 2:45, walking in without knocking and looking furious to see so many people there. "This is an illegal meeting," she announced. "All official HOA business must be conducted at properly noticed meetings." "This isn't an official HOA meeting," I said calmly. "This is a gathering of concerned homeowners discussing issues that affect our community. We have every right to assemble." "You're conspiring against the legitimate HOA leadership. We're exercising our property rights and our right to free association. Now, you're welcome to stay and participate, or you can leave. But you don't get to shut this down." She stayed, positioning herself in the corner with her arms crossed, glaring at everyone. I started the meeting by explaining what I had discovered about the HOA's lapsed registration and lack of a proper board. I showed everyone the documentation, including the bylaws that clearly required 5 board members and regular elections. For the past 3 years, Patricia has been operating as a one-person board, which violates our own bylaws, I said. That means any fines she's issued, any rules she's enforced, any money she's collected, all of it was done without proper legal authority. Murmurs spread through the room. Mr. Chen stood up. "So those fines she gave me, they're not valid, according to my lawyer, no. An improperly constituted board can't legally issue fines." Sarah Murphy raised her hand. "What about the dues we've been paying? I've been paying $300 a year for 3 years. Where did that money go?" All eyes turned to Patricia. She shifted uncomfortably. "The money went to community improvements. The signs, landscaping, legal fees." "Show us the accounting," Frank Morrison said. "The bylaws require the treasurer to provide detailed financial reports at least twice a year. When was the last time you showed anyone the books?" Patricia's face reddened. "I don't have to justify myself to a mob." "We're not a mob, we're homeowners," I said. "And yes, you do have to justify yourself. You've been collecting and spending our money. We have a right to know where it went. I've kept detailed records. I'll provide them when I'm required to at an official meeting." "Great," I said. "Let's schedule one. According to the bylaws, any 10 homeowners can call for a special meeting with 7 days' notice. I have 32 homeowners here. Let's take a vote." "All in favor of calling an official special meeting to review HOA finances and hold elections for a proper board?" Every hand went up except Patricia's. Motion passes. "The meeting will be next Saturday, same time, at the community clubhouse." "Patricia, you're required to provide complete financial records, including all income, expenses, and current account balances." "This is a witch hunt. This is accountability," Frank Morrison said. "Something you should have provided years ago." The meeting continued for another hour. We discussed all the problems with the HOA, the invalid fines, the lack of proper governance, and concerns about where the money had gone. Several people shared their own stories of Patricia's overreach and harassment. By the time everyone left, we had formed a committee to review the HOA's legal status and another to examine the finances once Patricia provided them. We also had several people volunteer to run for the board, including Frank Morrison, Mr. Chen, and Sarah Murphy. Patricia left without saying another word, but the look she gave me was pure hatred. Sunday passed quietly. I spent the day catching up on work and trying to relax. Monday morning, I woke up to find every window of my house had been soaped, spelling out words I would not repeat. There was also a dead rat on my front porch. I called the police immediately. Officer Martinez came out and took photos of everything. "This looks like harassment and vandalism," he said. "Do you have any idea who might have done this?" "I have a pretty good guess, but I can't prove it." "Any security cameras?" "No, but I'm installing some today." He filed a report and said they would patrol the area more frequently. After he left, I spent 2 hours cleaning soap off my windows and disposing of the rat with rubber gloves and a trash bag. I went to Home Depot that afternoon and bought a complete security camera system. I spent the evening installing cameras covering every angle of my property. If Patricia or anyone else tried something again, I would have proof. Tuesday morning, I got an email from the Deerfield Township Code Enforcement Office. They had inspected the HOA sign at the entrance of Willowbrook Estates and found it in violation of Township Ordinance 18-4. The sign was too close to the road and lacked the required permit. The HOA had 30 days to remove the sign or face fines of $100 per day. I forwarded the email to Patricia with a simple message. Thought you should know. She responded within minutes. This is your fault. You deliberately filed a false complaint to damage the HOA. I wrote back. I filed a legitimate inquiry about a sign that violates Township Code. The code enforcement officer made the determination, not me. Perhaps you should have checked the regulations before installing it. Wednesday morning, I found a formal legal letter in my mailbox. It was from a lawyer named Douglas Priest, representing the Willowbrook Estates HOA. The letter demanded that I cease and desist from all activities designed to undermine the legitimate authority of the HOA, including organizing illegal meetings and spreading false information about HOA governance. It threatened legal action if I did not comply. I scanned the letter and emailed it to Rachel. She called me within an hour, laughing. "This is the most ridiculous cease and desist letter I've ever seen," she said. "It has no legal basis whatsoever. You have every right to organize homeowner meetings and discuss HOA governance, and nothing you've said about the HOA is false. If anything, Patricia's lawyer is opening himself up to sanctions for filing a frivolous legal threat. Should I be worried? Not even a little. In fact, I'm going to call this Douglas Priest guy and educate him about HOA law. If he's smart, he'll drop Patricia as a client before this gets worse. It can get worse. Xavier, if the HOA has been collecting dues under false pretenses and Patricia has been misappropriating funds, she could face criminal charges. Fraud, embezzlement, theft. This isn't just civil court stuff anymore. The more I dig into this, the more I think you should contact the prosecutor's office. Seriously. Get copies of all the financial records at that meeting Saturday. If the numbers don't add up, you need to report it. Thursday morning, I got a call from Officer Chen, the female officer who had responded to one of Patricia's earlier complaints about me. "Mr. Vance, I wanted to give you a heads up. Patricia Hendricks filed a restraining order request against you, claiming you've been harassing and threatening her. That's completely false. I know. We reviewed the request and all the reports filed over the past week. There's no evidence of harassment or threats from you. The judge denied the request, but I wanted you to know she's trying to use the legal system to go after you. Thanks for letting me know. I appreciate it. Just be careful. She seems pretty unstable." Friday afternoon, I got an email from Douglas Priest, the lawyer who had sent the cease and desist letter. It was brief. "After reviewing the matter more carefully, I am withdrawing from representation of the Willowbrook Estates HOA, effective immediately. Please direct all future correspondence regarding this matter to your own attorney." Rachel had clearly put the fear of God into him. Saturday morning arrived with fresh snow falling. I woke up early and reviewed everything one more time. The official homeowner meeting was scheduled for 2 o'clock at the community clubhouse, a small building near the entrance of the subdivision that the HOA supposedly maintained. I arrived at the clubhouse at 1:30 to find the door locked. I called several other homeowners, and no one had a key except Patricia. I called her. "The meeting is canceled," she said. "I'm not providing any records, and you have no authority to force me. The bylaws say otherwise. 10 homeowners requested this meeting. It's happening whether you attend or not. Try having your little meeting without a location." She hung up. I called Frank Morrison. "She locked us out of the clubhouse." "Of course she did. Hold on, I might have a solution." 10 minutes later, Frank showed up with his own key to the clubhouse. "I kept this from when I was on the board," he explained. "Figured it might come in handy someday." We opened the clubhouse and found it in poor condition. The heating barely worked, there was a leak in the corner, and the furniture was old and broken. So this was what our dues had been maintaining. By 2 o'clock, even more people had shown up than the previous week. 35 homeowners packed into the cold clubhouse, angry and ready for answers. Patricia arrived at 2:15, empty-handed. "Where are the financial records?" I asked. "I don't have to provide them." "This meeting was improperly called." "No, it wasn't," Frank Morrison said, standing up. "I helped write these bylaws 12 years ago. Any 10 homeowners can call a special meeting with 7 days' notice. We followed the rules exactly. Now show us the books." "I refuse." "Then we'll vote to remove you as president right now," Sarah Murphy said. "All in favor of removing Patricia Hendricks from her position as HOA president, raise your hand." 34 hands shot up. Only Patricia's stayed down. "You can't do this," Patricia shrieked. "We just did," Frank said calmly. "Now let's elect a proper board. I nominate myself for president, Sarah Murphy for vice president, James Chen for treasurer, Xavier Vance for secretary, and Tom Patel for at-large member. Any other nominations?" There were none. We voted, and the new board was elected unanimously minus Patricia's vote. "As the new treasurer, my first act is to request access to all HOA financial accounts," Mr. Chen said. "Patricia, you need to provide the account information and transfer signing authority immediately." "No. That's not optional. The money belongs to the HOA, not to you personally. Refusing to turn over the accounts is theft." Patricia stood up, her face twisted with rage. "You people are all idiots. You have no idea what I've done for this community. The time I've spent, the work I've put in, the money I've invested." "Wait," I said. "What do you mean, the money you've invested?" She realized her mistake immediately and clamped her mouth shut. "Patricia, have you been spending personal money on HOA business?" Frank asked. She did not answer. "Or have you been spending HOA money on personal business?" Mr. Chen asked. Still no answer. "We're going to find out either way," I said. "We can subpoena the bank records. If you've done nothing wrong, just show us the accounts and this all goes away." Patricia grabbed her purse and headed for the door. "You're all going to regret this. I'll sue every one of you." She left, slamming the door behind her. The meeting continued for another hour. We discussed how to get access to the HOA bank accounts, how to properly register the HOA with the county, and how to notify all homeowners that previous fines were invalid and would not be enforced. Frank Morrison had brought his old files, which included the original bank account information from when the HOA was first formed. Mr. Chen, who worked in banking, said he could use that information to track down the current accounts. We adjourned around 4:30. As everyone filed out, several people thanked me for standing up to Patricia. "You're braver than most of us," Tom Patel said. "We all knew something was wrong, but nobody wanted to be the first to say it." Sunday morning, Mr. Chen called me with news. He had used his banking connections to locate the HOA accounts. There were two, a checking account and a savings account. The checking account had a balance of $900. The savings account, which should have held years' worth of excess dues, had a balance of $300. Xavier, if we've been collecting $300 a year from 40 families for the past 3 years, that's $36,000. Add in the money that was there before Patricia took over, and we should have at least $50,000 in savings. We have 300. Where did it go? That's what we need to find out. I'm requesting detailed transaction records going back 3 years. It might take a few days. Keep me updated. Monday morning, I had to go into the office for a meeting. I was gone for about 4 hours. When I came home around noon, I found my front door slightly ajar. My security cameras had been ripped down and smashed. I called 911 immediately and waited in my car until the police arrived. Officer Martinez showed up with 2 other officers. They cleared the house to make sure no one was inside. Then I went in to assess the damage. My home office had been completely ransacked. File cabinets were open, papers were everywhere, and my computer tower was missing. Nothing else in the house had been touched. This was not a random burglary. Someone had been looking for something specific. The HOA documents, I said. They took all my research about the HOA. But what whoever broke in did not know was that I had copied everything to the cloud. I still had access to all of it from my laptop, which had been at work with me. The police dusted for fingerprints and took a full report. Officer Martinez looked at the destroyed security cameras. The person who did this knew you had cameras and made sure to disable them. This was planned. It was Patricia Hendricks. It had to be. Can you prove it? No, but who else would care about HOA documents? We'll investigate. In the meantime, you might want to stay somewhere else for a few days, just to be safe. I called Marcus, and he offered to let me stay at his place for a while. I packed a bag and drove over, feeling violated and angry. This had gone way beyond HOA petness. Someone had broken into my home. Tuesday morning, Mr. Chen called with more news. He had received the bank records. Xavier, you need to see this. Can you meet me at my office? I drove to his accounting firm in Troy. He had printed out 3 years of bank statements and spread them across a conference room table. Look at this, he said, pointing to dozens of highlighted withdrawals. Cash withdrawals, checks made out to cash, transfers to external accounts. There's over $47,000 that left the HOA accounts over the past 3 years, and almost none of it is documented as legitimate expenses. Where did it go? I can't tell from just the bank records, but I have a friend at the bank who can help. These transfers went to a personal account in Patricia's name, so she was stealing from the HOA. Yes, and that's embezzlement. Xavier, this is serious. We need to report this to the police immediately. We drove together to the Deerfield Township police station. Officer Martinez was working, and we asked to speak with him and a detective. We spent 2 hours going through everything: the illegally constituted HOA board, the invalid fines, the missing money, and now the embezzlement evidence. Detective Sarah Walsh took over the case. She was in her 40s, with sharp eyes and no-nonsense attitude. This is definitely criminal. Embezzlement, fraud, possibly racketeering if she's been running this scheme systematically. I'm going to get a warrant for her bank records and her home. Mr. Vance, you said she also made threats and you suspect her of vandalism and breaking and entering. Yes. I showed her all my documentation, including the dead rat incident, the soaked windows, and the break-in. I'm going to talk to the prosecutor about filing charges. This woman has been running a criminal enterprise disguised as an HOA. Wednesday morning, I got a call from Detective Walsh. We executed a search warrant at Patricia Hendricks' home this morning. You need to see what we found. I drove to the police station. Detective Walsh led me to an interview room where she had laid out dozens of photos. They showed the inside of Patricia's home, which was filled with expensive furniture, artwork, and electronics, way beyond what someone should be able to afford on a normal income. We also found her financial records, Walsh said. She's been using HOA money to pay for renovations to her home, buying furniture, taking vacations, all of it charged as HOA expenses. She kept 2 sets of books, one showing fake expenses for community maintenance and another showing what she actually spent the money on. She documented her own crimes. Why would she keep records? Ego, probably, or maybe she planned to pay it back eventually. Either way, we have everything we need. She's being charged with embezzlement, fraud, forgery, and breaking and entering. That's not even counting the harassment and making false police reports. What happens now? She'll be arraigned, probably later today. Given the amount of money involved and the other charges, I expect bail will be set pretty high. I left the police station feeling a strange mix of emotions. Justice was being served, but it was hard to believe that 3 years of HOA drama had led to criminal charges. Thursday morning, it made the local news. Local HOA president arrested for embezzling nearly $50,000. Read the headline on the Oakland Press website. The article detailed Patricia's arrest and the charges against her. It mentioned that the Willowbrook Estates HOA was being reorganized under new leadership, and that previous fines issued by the illegally constituted board were being voided. My phone rang constantly that day. Neighbors calling to discuss the news, reporters asking for interviews, and Rachel calling to congratulate me on following through. "You did the right thing," she said. "A lot of people would have just moved or given up. You held her accountable. I just wanted her to stop harassing me about snow." Rachel laughed. "And instead, you uncovered a whole criminal operation. That's quite the escalation." Friday afternoon, I attended Patricia's bail hearing as a witness. The prosecutor argued that Patricia was a flight risk given the serious charges and requested high bail. Patricia's public defender argued that she was a longtime resident with no prior record and posed no danger to the community. The judge set bail at $75,000. Patricia, wearing an orange jumpsuit and looking smaller than I had ever seen her, was led back to holding. She glanced at me as she left, and for a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Then I remembered everything she had done and the feeling passed. The following weeks were busy. The newly elected HOA board worked to clean up the mess Patricia had left behind. We properly registered the HOA with the county, updated the bylaws, and sent letters to all homeowners explaining what had happened and voiding all previous fines. Mr. Chen, as treasurer, worked with a forensic accountant and the prosecutor's office to trace every dollar Patricia had stolen. The final tally came to $47,300. She had spent it on home improvements, furniture, clothing, and vacations. She had even used HOA money to pay for her lawyer, Douglas Priest, before he figured out what was going on and withdrew. The HOA filed a civil suit against Patricia to recover the stolen funds. Her house was put up for sale to pay restitution. In March, Patricia pleaded guilty to embezzlement, fraud, and breaking and entering in exchange for a reduced sentence. She was sentenced to 18 months in prison, followed by 3 years of probation. She was also ordered to pay full restitution to the HOA. The breaking and entering charge related to my house was what pushed the judge to impose jail time rather than just probation. Detective Walsh had found evidence in Patricia's home that connected her to the crime. My computer tower hidden in her basement, along with plans she had written outlining how to discredit me and force me to move. During her sentencing, Patricia was given a chance to speak. She rambled for 10 minutes about how she had only been trying to protect property values and maintain community standards. She claimed she had planned to pay back the money and that everyone was overreacting. She never actually apologized. The judge was not impressed. Miss Hendricks, you abused a position of trust to steal from your neighbors. You harassed residents who questioned you, made false police reports, committed vandalism, and broke into someone's home. These are not the actions of someone trying to help their community. These are the actions of someone who viewed their neighbors as subjects rather than equals. I hope you use your time in prison to reflect on the harm you've caused. I did not attend the sentencing, but Frank Morrison did and filled me in later. She still doesn't get it, he said. She genuinely believes she did nothing wrong. Life in Willowbrook Estates slowly returned to normal. The new HOA board operated transparently, with regular meetings, published minutes, and open financial records. We removed most of Patricia's ridiculous rules and focused on actual community improvement. The township snow plow continued to bury that sign at the entrance every time it snowed. Eventually, we just took the sign down permanently. Nobody missed it. In April, I had my driveway repaved and installed a complete security system with cameras and motion sensors. I never wanted to feel as vulnerable as I had during those weeks when Patricia was escalating her campaign against me. Mr. Chen, Sarah Murphy, and I became good friends through the whole ordeal. We had a standing monthly dinner where we would joke about HOA horror stories and marvel at how crazy things had gotten. You know what the craziest part is? Sarah said one evening over pizza. It all started because of snow. Just snow from a plow. That and a sign that never should have been there in the first place, I added. By summer, most of the stolen HOA money had been recovered through the sale of Patricia's house and seizure of her assets. The HOA used the funds to actually improve the community, fixing the clubhouse, upgrading the entrance landscaping, and creating a reserve fund for future maintenance. I ran into Patricia's daughter one day at the grocery store. Melissa was in her late 20s and had apparently been estranged from her mother for years. She apologized for what her mother had done. "I'm not surprised if I'm honest," she said. "My mom has always had control issues. When I was growing up, she had to control everything. What I wore, who I talked to, what activities I did. When I finally moved out for college, she started trying to control the neighborhood instead. I'm just sorry it took so long for people to stop her." "It's not your fault," I told her. "You can't control what your parents do. Still, I'm sorry you and everyone else had to deal with that." In August, almost exactly 1 year after the snow plow buried Patricia's sign and started this whole saga, I was sitting on my porch on a warm evening when Frank Morrison walked over with 2 beers. "Thought you might want one of these," he said, handing me a bottle. "Thanks." We sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the sun set. "You know, Xavier, what you did took guts, standing up to Patricia when nobody else would. I just got tired of being pushed around." "Yeah, but most people would have just paid the fines and kept their heads down. You fought back and you saved this community a lot of money and headaches." "We all fought back. You brought those old records. Mr. Chen tracked down the money. Sarah helped organize everyone. It was a group effort." "Maybe, but you started it. That counts for something." We finished our beers and talked about normal things. Work, sports, plans for the weekend. It felt good to just be neighbors without HOA drama hanging over everything. Patricia was released from prison after serving 11 months of her sentence, getting time off for good behavior. She moved to Ohio to live with a relative, and I never saw her again. Occasionally, someone would mention her at an HOA meeting. usually as a cautionary tale about what happens when power goes unchecked. The Willowbrook Estates HOA continued to function smoothly under its new board. We had regular elections, published budgets, and actual community input on decisions. It was almost boring compared to the Patricia years, and everyone preferred it that way. As for that township sign regulation that started everything, Deerfield Township eventually updated their code to be even stricter about sign placement after several residents complained about visual clutter. HOAs across the township had to remove or relocate dozens of signs that violated the new standards. I sometimes wondered if things would have been different if Patricia had just let the snow berm be, if she had not called the cops that first time, if she had not escalated at every opportunity. But then I realized that her personality made that impossible. She needed to be in control, needed to dominate, needed to win every confrontation. That compulsion is what drove her to embezzle, to harass, and ultimately to break into my home. The snow was just an excuse. If it had not been that, it would have been something else. On the first anniversary of Patricia's arrest, the HOA board threw a small party at the clubhouse. We called it a community appreciation night, but everyone knew what we were really celebrating: freedom from tyranny. Even the small-scale suburban variety, Mr. Chen gave a toast. To Xavier, for having the courage to ask questions. To Frank for keeping the records. To everyone here who stood up and said enough. And to the lesson we all learned, that communities work best when everyone has a voice, not just the loudest person in the room. We clinked glasses and someone made a joke about snow berms. Everyone laughed. The next winter, the township plow came through after a heavy snowfall and buried the spot where Patricia's sign used to be. I stood in my driveway with my coffee, watching the plow work, and smiled. Just snow. That's all it was. Just snow. But sometimes just snow is enough to reveal what lies beneath. In Patricia's case, it revealed a criminal enterprise disguised as community service. In my case, it revealed that I was willing to fight back against bullies, even when it seemed easier to give in. And in our community's case, it revealed that people would stand together when it mattered. I finished my coffee and went back inside to warm up. Life was good. The HOA was functional. My neighbors were friends, and nobody was calling the cops about snow. That evening, I got a message from Rachel. She wanted to know if I would be willing to be interviewed for an article she was writing about HOA reform for a legal journal. I agreed. If my experience could help other people trapped in dysfunctional HOAs, it was worth sharing. Over the next few months, I spoke with several journalists and even appeared on a local news segment about HOA abuses. The story resonated with people across Michigan and beyond. I received emails from homeowners dealing with similar situations, asking for advice. My standard response was always the same. Document everything, know your rights, read your bylaws, and don't be afraid to ask questions. Most HOA problems stem from lack of oversight and residents who are too intimidated to challenge authority. The civil suit against Patricia concluded in January, almost 2 years after this all began. She was ordered to pay the remaining balance of stolen funds, about $8,000 that had not been recovered through asset seizure. She was making payments of $200 a month and would be for years. The HOA was financially healthy again. We had enough in reserves to handle emergencies. Our dues were properly accounted for, and we were actually spending money on things that benefited the community rather than one person's personal expenses. In February, I was shoveling my driveway after another snowfall when Sarah Murphy came over to chat. "Can you believe it's been almost 2 years since all this started?" she asked. Sometimes it feels like a lifetime ago. Sometimes it feels like yesterday. Do you ever regret it? Getting involved, fighting back, all of it. I thought about that for a moment. No, I regret that it had to happen, that Patricia forced it to that point. But I don't regret standing up for myself and for everyone else. Sometimes you have to fight, even when it's hard. Well, I'm glad you did. This neighborhood is so much better now. That was the truth. Willowbrook Estates had transformed from a place where people were afraid to park in their own driveways into an actual community. People talked to each other, helped each other, and worked together to solve problems. We still had an HOA, but it served its intended purpose: maintaining common areas, enforcing reasonable rules, and providing a framework for community decisions. It was not someone's personal kingdom anymore. In March, I received a letter from the Oakland County Prosecutor's Office, thanking me for my cooperation in the case against Patricia Hendricks. It noted that my willingness to document everything and pursue justice had been instrumental in holding her accountable. I filed the letter away with all the other documents from that crazy time. Someday, maybe I would look back and laugh at the whole thing. For now, it was just good to have it behind me. Spring arrived, and with it came the annual HOA meeting where we elected board members and discussed the budget. It was well attended, civil, and productive. Frank Morrison was re-elected as president. Mr. Chen stayed on as treasurer. I stepped down as secretary, feeling like I had done my part, and it was time to let others serve. A new family moved into Patricia's old house in April. They were young, with 2 small kids and a friendly dog. I introduced myself the day they moved in and welcomed them to the neighborhood. "What's the HOA like here?" the husband asked. "Our last place had a nightmare HOA." "It's pretty reasonable now," I said. "We had some issues a while back, but they got resolved. Just read the bylaws, pay your dues, and you will be fine." That's a relief. We were worried after our last experience. I did not tell them the whole story. They would hear it eventually from other neighbors, but I did not want to scare them on their first day. As summer turned to fall, life continued in its pleasant, boring way. I worked, spent time with friends, and enjoyed my home without fear of harassment or illegal fines. It was everything I had wanted when I first moved to Willowbrook Estates, before Patricia turned it into a battleground. In October, I got an email from a filmmaker who wanted to option my story for a documentary about HOA abuses. I politely declined. I had shared the story enough times and was ready to just live my life without it being defined by those few crazy months. The holidays came and went. The HOA organized a neighborhood party in December, something Patricia had never allowed because she said it would create parking and noise issues. It was a huge success, with most of the neighborhood attending and everyone having a great time. As the second anniversary of the original snow berm incident approached, I found myself reflecting on everything that had happened. A simple complaint about snow had uncovered embezzlement, led to criminal charges, and ultimately transformed an entire community. It was a reminder that small acts of courage matter. Questioning authority matters. Standing up for what is right matters, even when it is inconvenient or scary. The snow fell again that January, and the township plow came through and created new berms along the street. I stood in my driveway, coffee in hand, and watched the snow accumulate. No HOA signs to bury, no threats of fines, no police calls, just snow. And that was exactly how it should be.